players on the rise that can help you win your IDP championship. That more this week on the IDP Blitz with John Norton. John, let's start out in Jacksonville. And we've seen this before where a team will take two players at a position, and in fantasy community, we're really excited about the player with the pedigree, although the player that's overshadowed on draft day that we like in some circles just as much, because Chad Muma did have a lot of fans. A lot of people were a bit dismayed whenever he went to Jacksonville because Devin Lloyd went in the first round. But maybe it's the folks who have Devin Lloyd that are going to be dismayed in the end.
Yeah, this was a strange situation on draft day. I think, they never really talked about it a whole lot, but I think what it came down to was they needed a linebacker. They took Devin Lloyd in the first round, and they liked Muma so much that when he was still there in round 3, it was one of those best player available, just can't pass him up. So they went ahead and took another one. I really doubt that they went into the draft expecting to take 2 middle linebackers, especially after signing Foye Oluokun in the offseason. But this is where we are now. So the next step in that is Devin Lloyd got to start early in the season, was playing really well for a few weeks, and he just started tapering off. And I wrote about this in my column a couple of weeks ago. I have to think that the guy just hit the rookie wall. We talk about that every year at this time. There's always those young guys that just nosedive around week 8, week 9, something like that. And their legs get rubbery and they just don't have the same punch that they had early in the season. And I believe that might be where Lloyd is. The good news there, they've got Chad Muma sitting behind him with fresher legs, pretty much fresh legs. And he is coming on and doing just as good a job. 7 tackles, 4 assists, a sack and a half. He only played 76% of the snaps last week. So that was a little disappointing. Once I saw that, it'd be nice if he was playing all the time. They're still getting Lloyd on the field a little bit. But obviously, 76% of the snaps is enough for Muma to be able to put up some good numbers with those fresh legs. I like him for down the stretch. I think he's one of those players that can really help us into our playoffs.
Yeah, certainly this week he'll get a chance to line up Derrick Henry a lot.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some injuries that might be bringing some players into focus for us, starting with Tennessee inside linebacker David Long with a hamstring injury. We saw Blake Martinez back to some sort of prominence before he decided to retire and play with Pokemon cards. What about Joe Schobert? Is there a window here of production for him?
Well, Schobert's always been very productive. He's been a 3-down linebacker most of his career, so we know he's capable of being on the field full time. They got Monty Rice, who came on when Cunningham went down and landed on IR, but Rice is not a 3-down guy. David Long has not been ruled out with the hamstring, but it doesn't sound like he's going to play this week and possibly beyond. Hamstrings usually take 2 or 3 weeks before they get the guys back. So Schobert is probably in line to make a start. And if he does make that start, I could easily see him being a 3-down guy until David Long returns. So he's been productive. He's one of those guys that I was kind of surprised was out there as long as he was. He's bounced around a little bit since leaving Jacksonville. But the guy can still play. He can still put up good numbers. He may not be the top flight linebacker that he once was in NFL terms, but he can definitely get the job for us with the opportunity.
Troy Anderson looks like he's going to be a top flight linebacker. Looks like a really good pick where you got him in your rookie drafts. Maybe not going to help as much immediately because he left with an ankle injury. Does that mean that we're looking at Michael Walker as a start when he comes back from the bye?
I've been digging, trying to find out what's going on with Anderson. They haven't really given us an update unless something has happened in the last few hours that I didn't see while I was at work today. But they're not telling us how serious the ankle injury is. It was enough to take him out of the game. Walker played a few more snaps than what he had been. We have been seeing that the transition there with Anderson getting a few more snaps every week and at the expense of Walker. That kind of stopped this week and went back the other way just a little bit after Anderson left. So this is one of those situations we need to keep an eye on the injury report, find out what's going on with Anderson. If he's going to miss time, then Michael Walker's he helped a lot of us get to the playoffs. It would be a shame to lose him on the eve of the playoffs, and we may actually get some good play out of him yet if Anderson actually misses time with the ankle injury. So that's all a pay attention to what's going on there. But know that that's happening. And if Anderson ends up being out, Walker can definitely help us.
Well, if it's an IDP blitz, we have a Cleveland Browns linebacker update. That's just been a tradition this year. It's a moving target, and it continues to be in motion. Now, Sione Takitaki goes down with a torn ACL. So who, if anybody, is the linebacker we want to have from the Browns going forward?
In years past, it was a moving target because of Brown's decisions and coaching decisions and goofy things that they were doing. This year, it's just been one injury after another. Takitaki is the latest one. You would think that eventually it would come around to Deion Jones and get him in the lineup, but surprisingly, it was Tony Fields who came off the bench. Fields has been playing a little bit in the last few weeks. He's a second-year player, was a fifth-round pick in 2021 out of West Virginia. Hadn't really shown a whole lot until these last few weeks, but he got on the field this week and absolutely went nuts. 3 tackles, an assist, an interception, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and a touchdown on 33 snaps. So unless this is one of those that you're almost going to have to roll a dice if you want to go with them this week, because with a week off, it's hard to say if they're going to turn it to Deion Jones or if Tony Fields is going to get to start. The whole Deion Jones situation is a bit of a head scratcher for me. So is this just another Browns goofy coaching decision and player personnel decision, or is Jones really deteriorated or dropped off to the point where he's not an NFL starter at this point? Because if he's still an NFL starter, there's no reason that he would not be on the field this week. I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on this situation into the week. My gut feeling tells me that Tony Fields is going to be the starter. The production that he put up last week tells me that he's going to be the starter. Just the way they're treating Deion Jones in general, he wound up playing 19 snaps and had a tackle and an assist last game. It may be a timeshare situation. Would definitely be a gamble to pick either one of them up and play them this week. But I think if I had that situation, I would definitely try to slide Fields onto my roster and see what happens this week. So you've got him for the rest of the playoffs, because Takitaki is not coming back. And one of those guys is going to be the man for the last 3 or 4 games.
We've mentioned a few rookie linebackers already on this show. One rookie linebacker that some people had in the first round and fell to the third round. We're not expecting him to contribute in IDP leagues this year, but that could be changing. Nakobe Dean for that stacked Eagles defense. He got on the field last week. Is there something there going forward? Is he going to be one of those players who maybe helps us win our league?
This is another one of those watch the injury report and see what's going on with Kazir White. He wound up leaving last week's game. I believe it was an ankle. Dean came in, it was late in the game, so Dean came on. He only played 15 snaps. He had 5 tackles and an assist on 15 plays. So that in itself is relatively impressive. But I'm having a hard time finding any update on what's going on with Kazir White. If White is healthy enough and is going to be back in the lineup, then put Dean back on the shelf and just kind of stash this away in your memory banks for next year. That the guy's going to be pretty good. White is a unrestricted free agent at the end of this year, so that position is definitely going to open up. This might just be a dynasty, little glimpse into next year for dynasty managers, but Dean is definitely eventually going to get that opportunity. As far as helping us this week, pay attention to what's going on with Kazir White later in the week. If we get some injury reports that tell us one way or another if he's going to be out, I think Dean's going to be a good pickup.
All right, let's move up front. And there's always those unlikely players. And it already happened at linebacker with Jack Sanborn. For those leagues that start defensive tackles, the name is Michael Hoyt. Has had quite a long and winding journey to the NFL. Finally got on the field with some significant snaps after Aaron Donald went down. Like you've been talking about these other injury situations. Could Aaron Donald get back on the field? Well, could Aaron Donald get shut down at some point just because the Rams are out of it? Could Michael Hoyt be one of the keys in leagues where you start a defensive tackle to going deep in your playoffs?
No, so Hoyt actually got into the lineup before Donald was hurt. He replaced Ashawn Robinson week before. So he played 84% of the snaps in each of the last 2 games. So even if Donald does come back, Hoyt's going to be on the field. He had 2 tackles and 4 assists in week 12. Came back. He only played 15 snaps over the first 11 weeks. In the last 2 games, he's played 84% of the snaps. So that just tells you how far out in left field he was and coming from nowhere. Nobody had grand expectations. The thing we got to think about here is we've got not only is Donald hurt, 6 teams on a bye this week, include some pretty big names at the defensive tackle position. You know, the one league I've got Jonathan Allen and Buckner in the same league, so I'm definitely hurting. This is a guy that I'm targeting to pick up to get me through this bye week. There's really not a whole lot of history behind him that we can look at that's going to tell us anything other than the fact that he's got 3 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble last week after 6 combined tackles the week before. He's going to be on the field. It's a bad situation where the defense, the Rams are just circling the drain, or actually headed down the drain already. So he's going to get plenty of opportunity. They're going to run against them. He's just, with the situation with so many people on bye and such a thin position anyway, it's worth a shot picking the guy up and plugging him into your lineup if you're losing one of those top flight guys.
Yeah, he'll be on the field. Thursday night game, by the way. So if you want to put Hoyt in your lineup playing the Raiders on Thursday night, I got to go put him up for auction, Red Eye Masters right now. I've got Deron Payne and Grady Jarrett on bye in our Red Eye Masters League, where you're going to take down the number 1 seed, because that's how the Mud Ducks do. Let's also look at a defensive lineman. The Detroit Lions defense, after being one of the softest defenses, one of the defenses we want to target when we're setting our lineups on offense, now is turning into one of the better defenses in the league. So there's opportunities there, especially with an offense that is staking them to big leads and allowing some pass rush opportunities. Is Romeo Okwara a player that, especially in defensive end, their production can be tough to come by? Do you foresee maybe some production for him down the stretch?
Possibly. If you look at the Lions defense from, say, week 3 to the Lions defense in, say, week 12, you would not recognize that they're the same team, I don't think. That team has really turned the corner. They've come a long way. They've got it headed back in the right direction. Anybody that's still stuck on back in that early season thinking that they're a pushover hasn't really been paying attention to what's going on the field here recently. Okwara's coming off of an Achilles injury. Missed a whole lot of time. They expected to have him back a long time before now. I don't know how much he's going to help right away. Depends on how completely healthy he is. They're going to ease him back in, so we might get some play out of him during our playoffs. You got to remember the guy had 10 sacks in 2020, which was the last time he was healthy for an entire season. So this might be more of another dynasty primer for you guys to look at to pick this guy up and get him on your roster in some of those dynasty leagues, just so you've got him protected for next year. He's a good pass rusher. He's a good 3-down defensive end. I think he's going to make an excellent bookend there. Mm-hmm. How quickly it comes around is yet to be seen, but he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. We might be able to get a little bit of run out of him here at the end of the year.
A couple of things to keep an eye on before we close out this edition of the IDP Blitz. In the secondary, and the nature of safety is you can find players that are anonymous going into the season, especially in bad teams that are on the field a lot. Jonathan Owens was one of them. But what do we have in Jonathan Owens now? He was great through the first month and a half of the season. Does he have anything to offer in December?
Well, it's hard to say. Hang on, just wife's coming in. Jonathan Owens, great start of the season. Hasn't played more than 80% of the snaps since week 7. You might remember that was the week he was benched early in the game, supposedly to be recharged. They need to plug him back in, I guess, because he's not getting it done now. So the playing time is down. The production is down. Is it Jonathan Owens? Is it the coaching staff? I don't know what to expect there. But at this point, he's definitely not somebody we can trust in our lineups. They did the same thing. We're doing the same thing with Jalen Petrie. They dropped his snap count a little bit. And now all of a sudden he's come back and played 100% this last week, but they're not doing that with Owen. So I'm not sure exactly what the situation is there with him going forward, but he's definitely not somebody we can trust playing 80% of the snaps.
We've been wondering who to trust since Jamal Adams went down for Seattle. For a bit, it was Ryan Neal, who was playing well and producing. It's not. We now talking about these reclamation projects. Jonathan Abram, who another one of those Mayock, Gruden draft picks that the Raiders have moved on from, claimed by the Seahawks. Should we be looking to claim him in our IDP leagues?
This was an interesting move to me. When Green Bay picked him up, I just kind of shook my head because Jonathan Abram is not a fit in the Packers defense. The Packers they basically need two guys back there with free safety skill set, and Abram does not have a free safety skill set. He is more of a box safety, run support, up close to the line thumper. He's basically a poor man's Jamal Adams in a lot of ways. And the Seahawks defense was built with Jamal Adams in mind. So the only thing Abram doesn't really bring that Adams does is a lot of the big play potential. I don't know if it's their plan to make him a bigger piece of that before the end of this season or what the deal is, but we do know that Ryan Neal is fading. He's losing snaps. His numbers have gone down. Last week he was down to 73% play share. So I have to wonder if maybe once they get Abram up to snuff, if they don't plug him in, I think he would be an excellent fit in that scheme. Like I said, the big play production is not up to Jamal Adams standards. But other than that, they are pretty much the same player as far as skill set goes. So I think Abram could be a good fit and something to definitely keep an eye on here if you're looking for help at that position through our playoffs.
You always want to be keeping an eye on everything in Eyes of the Guru, everything from the great IDP team at footballguys.com, whether you're pushing for the playoffs, whether you're a dynasty team that's out of it and looking who's stash for next year. We got you covered. Football Guys playing IDP fantasy football. It's the best, the only real fantasy football, and you play it. We serve you because you're so classy.